Okay, well, this can be kind of brief then if we've already if you've already done it once. But I would like to go over what putting together a custom title block is, not just the ones that we inherit from Autodesk, but your very own. Okay, let's get the American Life building up. What I want to do is let's just get into like your first floor plan. What comes with that template is the 30 by 42, and that's just way bigger than we're going to want to have. So I think we can load the let's see if we have any other options. Okay, it's just by default, whatever template we're using just has the 30 by 42 and the tiny one. We need one that's in between. So what I want to do is go in and insert load family, Imperial Library, all the way at the bottom, Titleblocks, 22 by 34. Okay. And now that that's been inserted into the models database, let's do Sheets, right-click, New. If you've inserted this correctly, it'll be there for you. Okay, good. Okay. So there's this, and we can see this on the new sheet is the 22 by 34. Let's take a look at this guy. I'm going to use DI for distance just to understand what's going on. Okay, 2'10" is 34 inches, so that's correct. So what we're seeing here on this outside border is our 22 by 34 inch rectangle. Okay, now important thing to understand about how Revit plots when you're printing a sheet. Let me draw a line out here. When you're plotting from a sheet, Revit takes everything that's on this sheet, including this little line, and scale it so it fits on the size paper you picked. And that would mean reducing this whole thing considerably just to make room for everything here to fit on the page size you picked. So the point of this is once there's a sheet, you only put things inside that frame. Otherwise, you'll have weird stuff off to the corner of your drawing and everything will be reduced down to be too small. So pay attention to that. And that can sometimes happen if you've got a view. Let's bring in a view. If you've got a view that maybe you forgot to turn crop back on, a little bit of stuff sticks out of, then that same thing is going to start happening. So you just want to be clean inside the rectangle. Let's talk about what's on a title block and where it comes from. Sort of from top to bottom, usually you have fixed information, which is like the name of the designer, the name of the firm, address, contact information, stuff that's never going to change. I mean, you're going to have the same email address for the rest of your time here at U of L. So that kind of stuff will be up at the top. I'm calling that designer information on page 1 of the handout. And then we're going to get rid of all this stuff, contractor information, which doesn't apply here. We're going to get rid of the revision levels because we're not dealing with that in a long-term professional project. But down in the middle, we have the owner information, or I should say project-wide information, which will be the project name, and that will be the same from sheet to sheet to sheet within this drawing set. Address, the client name, the design team's unique project number. I just start them with 2025, 001, 002, 003, that kind of thing. We don't necessarily have to do that for you guys. And then an issue date when this was all published. And then down at the bottom, actually right here and right here, we have a couple things that are specific to this sheet, which will change from sheet to sheet. This being the name of the sheet, like first floor plan or perspectives. Down here, the sheet number, which always wants to be in large type and very clearly located, almost always down here at the bottom right corner, because that's, as people are flipping through a set, they're going to see I need to go to detail 7 on page A4, and they need to be able to turn to page A4 very quickly, like thumbing through a book, and they want to see that right there. They can just thumb through those. What I want to do is take this title block, comes from Autodesk for just sort of generic use, and make it specific to a student project, as opposed to, we don't want to see owner, we might want to see the professor's name. Maybe project name will say the same, we'll see. So what I'm going to do is take this family, this 22 by 34 inch family here, and let's just go to edit family. And once here in the family editor, and we can see here in here, there are dimensions which are not going to show up once it's loaded back into the project. A couple of things I want to notice here. The 1.5 inches here from the edge of the paper to the edge of where we're going to start drawing is there because most of the times what's going to happen at a blueprinting place is they're going to take all the sheets, stick them in a fold a piece of paper like this and then staple them shut. And we don't want our drawing to be hidden by the paper. And that's usually about 1.5 inches. So that's how much I leave there. And then it used to be as well that pen plotters and stuff couldn't plot right up to the edge of the paper. These guys can. They can plot right to the edge. But since we don't know exactly what kind of plotter this is going to be coming off of, we leave a half inch around for the other borders. In terms of the size, when we do print them over here, I'm assuming we're going to print to PDF just so you have a permanent record of your drawing at each stage. It's really nice to have that. Then we need to remember when we're printing over on the plotter is not to print to fit, because that'll make it go up to 24 by 36. So we'll print each 22 by 34 inch title block scaled at 100% in the center of a slightly larger 24 by 36 inch sheet. We won't have to cut anything. Okay, so let's figure out what we don't need here. We don't need Autodesk. I mean, at least their logo. We don't need their, let's get rid of all this stuff up here. We don't need any of these contractor guys. We don't need the schedule for revisions. That sort of leaves a lot of room. People have dealt with this a couple of ways. One is to put whatever you figure your personal expression logo is up here with your contact information, and then do something big for a project name. Although it's down here already, we can move it around. You can do what engineers do. I'm just going to pick on them for a while, which is to say, that's all I really need here. That means that the 182-foot building that wouldn't fit previously will now fit, so they don't have to split it in half and have a part A and a part B on 2 separate sheets of paper. Another way is to put all that information in a strip across the bottom. A firm really needs to leave room for names and addresses of contractors, architects' seals, engineer seals, whatever has to go on there. But heck, we're in art school, guys. Come on, you can do what you feel like. But let's look at what is here, and to see how we might make it, when you're filling this out, how to make it feel more like a student project. And that's what I'm doing here over on the middle of page 2, if you're interested, of today's lecture 21. Let's load this into the project and close right now, just as it is. Yes. Everybody get this reply here? Okay, that's because we'd be saving it back to the Revit Titleblocks folder, which has been locked on purpose by the installation program. All the Revit families are in locked folders, so you don't mess this up for anybody else who might be using this computer. So what we want to do, we want to save this to your Revit families folder, maybe in a Titleblocks subfolder. So let's do File, Save As, Family. And I have a My Revit Families folder. You should too, somewhere convenient to find on your hard drive. Just the way we saved our own chairs to another folder. It's just another family we're sticking in our own structure. We can take from computer to computer, year to year, like that. Because I know this is one that I'm going to personalize for my own name and my own use, I'm just going to call it BG D22 by 34 horizontal, or just BG 22 by 30 horizontal, because that's me. You can use your own initials, or just your first name, anything that will make it obvious what's going on here. Or BG U of L, BG U of L, 22 by 34. Go cards, save. Okay, so once that has a place on the disk and where we can come back to it, I'll say load into project and close. If you're in a sheet view already, like here, the new title block will be there to place. If you're in a different kind of view, it will be added to the project database, but won't be placed. And here I am on my first floor sheet with the Autodesk title block. Just like switching out one chair for another, or one table for another, or light fixture for another, this is the family that can be switched out for another family of the same category. So I'm going to pick this one, which is the 22 by 34. I mean, the big one, the 30 by 42, which is the default. And then from here, I can pick one of these other twos. Just the way you'd switch out a chair for a chair. This is a family, but it's a 2D annotation family instead of a 3D family. It was that easy. Okay, but if we go down to the A2, that's still got the big one in it. Let's say there are 20 pages here. We don't want to have to go back and do that for all 20 of them, right? So what we do is we pick this one. This is very clever, ladies. We pick this one, select it, right click, select all instances in entire project. So we can't see them, but we have selected all, 20 of those big title blocks. And then that means that they're all selected on all those stacked up sheets underneath this, all the way down. So then we can just go and change all of them to the newly minted 22 by 34-inch title block. Done. This is the point where Keith's mention about maybe it's a strip across the bottom would work better for this project. Up to you. Up and down the sides is sort of the way architects have been doing it. Across the bottom is maybe the way engineers have been doing it. But it really depends upon the project. I mean, if you have a building that 1/8 of an inch is just going to fit from here to here, you would certainly have something like down here or just across the bottom, just so you don't have to split your drawing in half and have half of it on sheet 100 and half of it on sheet 100.2 or something. But let's look at this guy again. I decided I do want something more fancy going up and down the right-hand side, but I don't know what that's going to be yet. But let's go pick it and go to Edit Family. I think I want to start with sort of your own personalized stuff, which I won't even guess at, but I think I'll just run this line all the way up to the top just to sort of define an area. So let's just say that this first part up here, let's say I want to have like a square for my design information. I think the cleanest thing to do in terms of drawing lines is the line tool, shortcut LI. The tools available in the title block version of the family editor are not all the same ones as we have in the 3D family editor that we're used to. Okay, so I'm going to put something in here. I'll just go get a picture from my desktop. Imagine this is my logo or something. And then I'll just put my name, address, and phone number or something or other. Create text, bills, design, Emporium. Louisville, Kentucky. 2 L's. It's not Louisville, Kentucky. I do that a lot. And then whatever other information had to be there. Let's just go see how that looks. So again, I'll say load into project and close. And that will ask if we want to save the file to disk in the process. You'll save it? Yes, I do. Replace the previous version without the logo. And this means, do you want to replace the file on disk? Yes, I want this available in other projects. Now, we didn't change any parameters, but I pretty much just always check this guy regardless of what's going on. So there's this one with the my sheet A1 with that on it, and then also all my other sheets have that as well. That logo showing up. So we continue to take that as far as we want. So let's see where this information comes from. What shows up here? I basically have 2 types of information here. Some of it, just like the word project number and the word date and drawn by and checked by, is just text. It's just telling me over here on the right-hand side the information that will be fed to it from the project's internal database. So let's see what those look like and where they come from. A lot of it is going to come from manage project information. And this will set all the project information that remains constant across all the sheets in this set. Project information. We don't really need to deal with these right now. Let's just come down to the bottom here and say client name. And we might end up calling this professor's name or something or other, but let's, right there, where the word owner shows up, we're going to replace that with Professor Smith. Okay, And then right away, that changes to Professor Smith on all the title blocks in the set. Let's change project name. Manage project information. Project name, again, it's again what we have on the left is just sort of the little legend. On the right is where it's actually happening. Project name, final review, or project name, I guess, should be American Life. American Life redo or something, whatever you want. Okay. So let's just make sure that's showing up on all these guys. Let's go to another page. Yeah, and that's all been updated on all those sheets. Project number, we might change that to eventually to make it say class and term or class and semester or something or other. But for the rest of it now here is going to be specific to this one sheet. The date that it was issued, who drew it, who checked it, its number, and the scale of the drawings on it. And when it says scale, if they're all the same scale, like an eighth of an inch equals a foot, it'll put that in here. If there are different scales, I think it'll either leave that blank or say varied or something or other. We'll see how it goes. Let's just do a few more that are still project wide. Let's change the thing that says project number. Revit's going to still think of it as a project number, but we're going to make it be the course name. So let's go back to manage, project information, project number. There we go. Let's say DES 563 S25. I see I spelled, and you can always go back and change these like I just changed that. I spelled American Life wrong. Okay. So some things will apply only to this one sheet here on A1 first floor. And those we change in the properties of a sheet. So we can click on this and we see we got things to fill in for the sheet name. Let's change that right now from first floor to first floor plan. And right away that changes on this sheet, but it won't on the others because this is a property of this one sheet right here. Now let's change the sheet number to A-100 just to see how it all works. So this is sheet specific information. In the real world, every one of these, pretty much every sheet that goes out will have who was responsible primarily for the drawing of it and who's been responsible for making sure that that's correct. And I'm not sure we really need to have drawn by down here since we know it's yours and that's going to be in big stuff up at the top. So let's get rid of some of that. Let's just clear out that information. And to do that, we'll have to go back and edit the whole family again. So select it, edit family. Here we see we just have sort of dummy text put in here, just holding space while we are editing it. But this is truly text right here. So let's just pick this and edit as text and just call it course. And term. And then that'll, as we know, end up saying DES 563 spring 25. So interesting, what we're doing is in the family describing what's going on, and the actual sheet or the project is where we fill in the appropriate information. We can still leave date as the same. We can just get rid of these guys. For our purposes, we don't need to know who drew it and who checked it. It might be that Professor Smith is going to fit on that line, on one line, presumably. And you can always shorten professor to prof or whatever. Project name might well end up being 2 lines or 3. American Life Building, interior design, studio renovation, something like that. So let's just move the client up a bit farther. And give enough room for project name so that if it does take 2 lines, we'll have room for it. I'm sort of making this up as I go along in case you hadn't noticed. And I think I would like to have the sheet name right down here above the sheet number, so we don't have to have information in between those guys. Sheet name might also be 2 lines. So maybe just move those guys up some. So you can see how malleable this is. We're just sort of doing, InDesign sort of stuff to it. But so if sheet name goes to 2 lines, we've got that room for that. A101, I think the rest can stay here. Project name. Oh, maybe you want right after your information, the project name should be, maybe that's even above the client name. Let's look at what other information we might want to put here. Let's see what Revit has available. Let's say we want to put the address on here. Attached to any project are many kinds of information, addresses, dates, numbers, all kinds of stuff. So if we want to put the project address here, I'm going to copy this down. And each of these is what's called a label, which is to say a placeholder for information in the database. We pick this copy right here and go to Edit Label. And you can see over on this list here, these are all the different kinds of information we can have about this project. Building name, checked by, client name, revision levels, drawn by, file path, where this is on our hard drive, a lot of kind of stuff like that. And I want to call this project address. So using the same method as for adding fields to a schedule, we add the address to this label and take this one off it. Why? Okay. And that will take as many lines as we want. Street address, city, state, zip, something or other else. So we'll leave some room down below that before we get to the client name. So for this project, that might say American Life Building, 147 West Main Street, whatever it is. And then the client would be the professor's name. And then down here, we'd have the course and term. Or you might decide, I would like to have the course and term be much more obvious. I would like to, if client name is going to be Nathan Smith, I would actually like to have course and term be up here and center justified instead of right justified. And larger. So all the things that we can do with, fonts and stuff. So project name, project address, client name. Let me just see how this works. New project and close. Yes. 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 Okay, we see a couple of things there, which is it looks like these aren't justifying correctly because this one, which looked like it was okay, is now coming up into where Professor Smith was. So I've got some work to do with justifying this. Let's just see what we get. Client name, horizontal line center, vertical line top. Okay, that's good. Let's pick this guy. Oh, and this one is vertically aligned bottom. So if it has multiple lines, it's going to go up. So I want to change that back to top. So if it gets longer, it'll come down. I want to make it wider. So it'll take up the whole line if need be. Let's load that into project and close, see where we get. Okay, that looks better. So to put in the address, that's a project-wide piece of information. So they manage project information. And right now we have project address. And when we get that, we also get a little option to drop down here and have a multi-line text element. So it's not just be street, but we'll say, what's the address? 417. That's it. 417 West Main street. I'm not doing well at that. Or something or other. Okay, so we start getting that. And it looks to me like one of those is trying to creep up into the other one. So let's make sure that these guys are justified as well. Edit family. Yeah, it looks like project address was also trying to creep up there. So let's do this. Let's keep them all top vertically aligned. Top vertically aligned. So you can see it takes a while to get it just the way you want it. Load into project and close. Yes, yes. Okay. So that's, the way I'm thinking that that's going to start showing up. The difference between these two dates here, so this right here is the date and project information. Manage project information, project issue date, and we'll just say that that's going to be, when's your final review, Tomorrow. April, that's this month. 31st. Make it as long as we can. Okay, so then that'll show up down there, and that'll show up on all of them. So that's just the date of your final review. And the vertical one is filled in by Revit with the date and time that the project is actually printed. So the last thing is just sort of test this out a little bit. If I want to see if this here, sheet name first floor plan revised by Nathan. Yeah, we can see that jumps down there. Still acceptable. Might lift it a little bit over in the family editor, but I think that's okay. And fix the typos. I want to get back to my roof plan. Does anybody think that they want to deal with the lowered floor, or do we just want to assume that elevator is at the same level as the rest? Keith said if we wanted to, we could ignore the fact that the 6th floor elevator arrival area is lower than the rest of the floor. I'm cool with that. If anyone wants to retain the drop floor, I'll be glad to work with them individually with that. It's not that big a deal. If that does something for your design or your sense of arrival or something or other. But actually, to make that accessible, you'd have to have some sort of a lift or something to get people from that lower level up those steps. You'd have to have some accommodation, especially if it's a public space or the university or, it's a gallery or something. So let's just plan its level. I mean, what I did figure was that this area here would be dropped. I don't know where just this line is, but this can be dropped. You come in here and then up the stairs, but I think it's more than we want to deal with. Now that I look at it, since we're not having the drop floor and we don't care what happens in the elevator shaft, I think the easiest thing for this floor slab for your top floor is just to delete the holes and figure that it's all one solid floor all the way across. Because we don't care what happens back in here, although it's dropped. We're ignoring that this is like this. And this way you can just come in and draw your walls the way you want them. And what I'm going to further suggest, so we don't have to worry about these walls that are coming all the way up from the first floor, is to take all 8 of these walls and just have them come up to the bottom of the penthouse floor. And then you can just draw on the penthouse floor whatever you want. So let me show you how that'll work. So let me pick these. And I'm going to say, take them from level 1, but up to this roof level. And then I'm going to say, select them all, select previous, and attach them to this guy. And then they'll just drop down and attach to the bottom of that floor. And then we can just make our own stuff with just regular height walls where we don't have to consider things that are moving something and it turns out it affected it all the way down to the first floor. So these guys, wherever they are, can just go up to the level of the penthouse roof. Offset 0. So all of these walls up here on the penthouse the roof level, which I've just renamed level 6. It's just easy for me to, in fact, I'm just going to do that right now. Level 6. Much clearer what's going on here. And this I don't care about. Roof framing, we don't care about that. All these templates come with really more stuff than we need, and you can whittle away at them. So to see where I need to add my 6th floor shaft walls, to see the ones that stop at the 6th floor, I can go into a wireframe view, do my 8-inch wall from the roof. I changed the name of the plan. I didn't change the name of the level. So got to do that. Get into an elevation view. Here's what I need to do. I need to change this to level 6, 6th floor. Okay, now it'll show up. And then I'll keep calling that penthouse roof to make it really clear what's going on. Okay, sorry for that. Level 6. So any new walls I want going in, WA for wall, level 6 up to penthouse roof. And these guys that only go up to the bottom of the 6th floor, I need to trace these in effect. I'm sort of putting a little penthouse version of these coming up so we can manipulate them as needed without worrying about moving the shaft walls on all the floors below. And I can see them now because I have a wireframe turned on enough to see down that far. Then I'll turn that off, go back to hidden line mode. And now I just have our floor. I don't want to even see this floor anymore. We should pick a different floor for that, but hide in view elements. And that was that dropped floor. So I think that's clean. And just drawing walls, I can just draw them. Like that. And then Keith said we could move this down. This is what Japa said. So that's sort of what I'm ending up with. For the placement of the exterior walls, we figured out from Google Earth that it's 14 feet in from the grid lines to the center line of the walls on the east and the west, and 28 feet from the grid line to the wall center line north and south. And that's very clear. Out to out. $98.8. It would be 98 center to center. Actually, let's do this way. Going to center lines. So those are our center line wall dimensions, 14 and 98. I'm just putting these straight down the middle. We got nothing else to go on. Let's just all agree, you know. We're fudging it, but let's fudge it consistent with the original design intent, which is center lines on the 7-foot grid lines, I think. So that would make this guy going right down the middle here. I'm going to turn this back off again. Sorry. Visibility graphics. I think that's got us. Let's check the north-south dimensions. Okay, I can live with that. Hope you all can. Are we done here?